Hey there, so we're going to continue on with our Python REST client that we started writing. If you haven't seen that video, go take a look at that. Remember that all we did in that video initially was just do the put, or sorry, what we did was we did the get to create the person. And so looking at that code, here it is. So we'd have to have some data in the database already to do that. And let's just go look at that in Postman. You'll notice I have several kind of repeated values out here as I've been playing around with this. So we're going to start with create. And so when you're calling a REST API, the convention is that the post verb is what you use to create new values. In this case, a new person object. And what you notice here is, if we go over here and look at this in Postman, you'll see that what you have to do is pass in the first name, last name, pay rate, start date, end date. You'll notice you don't pass an ID in, and that's because in the database it automatically creates the ID for you. So it would just depend on the API you were calling as to whether you would pass the ID in or not. So let's get right to it. And what I've done is I've created another program, and in here I've created some functions in main, and so I'm going to uncomment the create. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this line of code because we don't need it. It was just there as a placeholder so I could compile the code. And then in this routine we'll go ahead and create it. Now I just want to point out to you that I've created a class here with a constructor that takes all this data in. So before we were automatically, if you remember in the other program, what we were doing was having it automatically create the object for us. But in this case, we need to create the object and populate it to send it in for the create. So we're going to go ahead and do that, but I'll just let you look at this code real quick. So this is the class. This is the constructor code right here. We pass in the ID, first name, last name, pay rate, start date, end date, and then those get assigned, and then these properties are assigned or initialized up front. So let's go ahead and get started here. So we don't need all of that. So what we're going to do is the first thing we're going to do is just create a new person, and so we're just going to call this constructor up here, and we're going to give it 0 as the ID. And the reason for that is because we're not going to actually it doesn't matter that that's passed in. It's going to get assigned an ID by the database because the database is auto numbering. Again, it depends on your particular situation. So I guess we'll do the Star Wars theme type stuff here. Darth Vader for first name and last name, and pay rate. Oh, I don't know. Doesn't really matter what we say. And then their start date. Let's do this. And then the end date. Let's just do something like that. So all this does is create a person object. We haven't called our REST service at all. And then what we're going to do is we need to turn this into JSON because we have to send it in the body of the request. So the authorization and the headers are still going to be the same. With the API key, all that's the same. This is a protected API. So, but what we need in the body is this. And the way we do that is we go ahead and do this. JSON data is, we just say JSON.dumps p._dict__. So basically what that says is take P as a dictionary, turn it into JSON. So pretty straightforward. And the next thing we'll do is go ahead and get our response using a request. I'm going to go copy some code here so that you don't have to watch me type all this authorization code in again. Remember, you'll want to store that authorization securely, preferably encrypted. So the basics of this call is the same, except we're not doing a get, we're doing a post. So that's the verb we're using. We're using the URL, which is the same. And it probably pays to go and look at the API here. So this is the post, and it just says it just wants a person. And so that's how this is set up. One difference, though, is a parameter called data. This is where we pass the body information. And let's see, one other thing is we want, in the header, we're going to add content type. We're going to let it know that we're using JSON. That's just always a safe thing to do. And that'll do it. And you'll notice I just added that in this headers. You could certainly have done the headers and the authorization outside of this and then just passed variables in and all right, let's talk a little bit about HTTP response codes or REST response codes. We were used to looking for a status code of 200, but when you're creating a new resource, the convention is that if it's successful, it should return a 201, which means that it created it. It created it for you. Okay, so and then this particular API, if we go look at this code, and hopefully you've got good documentation, but basically what it's going to do, it's going to create the person, and then it's going to pass you a URL that lets you go and get the person, which we're going to do that. And again, this is just kind of a standard REST convention. So, and that's going to be stored in the headers location field. So just to see what that looks like, we'll go ahead and do print. Res.headers .get and we're looking for the location field or the location key. And actually, let's just do this right here. We don't need all that to start with. This is just demonstrate that we can actually see it. And let's just go that far to start with, okay? So let's do that much. Let's run it. And we need to, okay, so it said it created. Now, so we got a 201 back. So it went into this code and it printed the location. So this is now the API key. Well, actually, not the API key. This is the actual location of the resource that you just created. So it got created with ID 43. And so if we were to open that up, it immediately says invalid API key because, again, we're secure. So So we need to actually pass in all the API key information. And so we will do, so what we're going to do now is go ahead and, if we were successful and we got a 201, then we're going to go ahead and do the get that we did before. And so I'm just going to go ahead and grab this line of code. Nothing like a little copy paste to make things go a little quicker, hopefully. And the difference is that instead of passing URL, we are going to pass res.headers and location, because it doesn't matter where it put it. It's telling us where it is, which is great. And then we have all of our authentication in here. And in this case, it will return back a 200. And then we can say a person is equal to. So here's another way that we could get the data. Res.json. We know that the response coming back is going to include, it's going to look like this. I know this is kind of a lot to keep track of, but it's going to look like this. And so what we're doing is we're reaching in and grabbing each one of these values. However, in this case, we're going after only one of these. So what comes back is just one of these records, which is the one that we just added. So I'm going to go ahead and type in all this and then come back. So I don't want you to have to sit here and watch me do that. So I'll just pause for just a second. Okay, so all I'm doing is creating a new person object by using the constructor again. So up here we did it and our object was P. Down here we're doing it, the object is person. You could have also done it the way we did it in the other video if you wanted to do that. Okay, so if the status code's a 200, go ahead and go get the person, else print whatever the status code was. Okay, and that's it. So let's debug this time. Yep, something didn't work. I got an error over here. It's because I forgot my colon. All right, let's try that again. Okay, here we go. We've done the post. Passing it this data again, so I've now added the same person twice, but they're under different IDs. Status code was 201. The res.headers has the location in it. You can see it right here. Here's our location. And so we'll go ahead and get this. We'll go do a get on it. Status code's 200, so now we have a totally populated person as soon as I get over this line of code. And, well, it's there. We could prove that by doing print person dot last name, or yeah, we'll do last name. That's fine. So we'll go ahead and run this. There's our location and there's our person that we added. Okay, so that's it. That's how you do a post. So things to remember is the 201 code that should be coming back, but always check your REST API. It's not guaranteed that it was implemented that way. All right, on to update. Now with an update, what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually update one of these values. So I'm going to grab one of the many values that are out here, and we'll do an update on it. So now we've got Darth Vader out here a couple of times. And so let's go ahead and let's look at our put. Now what put wants is it wants to know the ID of the person that you're updating, and then it's going to update it with the body. And if we go looked at if we were to go look at this code, you'd see that all it does is just do a SQL update, passing through whatever you gave it. So it doesn't care. You cannot update the ID. So yeah, so that's it. So we're going to do the put this time. So similar code. So now we're going to turn on our update person. So we're now going to implement this code. And so let's see here. There may be some code here we can use, so we'll grab all of this and copy it down. The first thing we're going to do is just go get, we're just going to go get the person. So here we go. Now, the reason I'm doing this is so that we have the object, then we're going to update it, and then we're going to do a put on it. And so this is not right. We don't have a location, so we need to say URL, but remember that the syntax was URL/ID. And so you get to pick which one of these you want. And so looking at the data, we'll pick ID 43. Let's do this. There's a couple of Darth Vaders in here, but we'll do 43. So we're going to update 43. So this is the one we're going to be updating, is this one. So then we need to give it the ID. Now you can imagine that what you could have done is requested a list of these and then let the user pick the one that they wanted to update, do the update, and then call it. That's how you would normally do this. I'm trying to abbreviate this somewhat so that you can see how it works. And the other thing we're going to do is add in this content type application JSON. I'm just going to try to be more consistent with that. It's a better way of doing this. So we've got that as well. So we're going to get the person, and then we're going to be looking for a status code of 200. And sorry for the mess in the code. I'm going to clean it up here. So if it's a 200, then go out and populate the person, just like we did before. Else, print the status code. Okay, so here we go. So all I did was get the person. Okay, so now if I have a person, I'm going to go ahead and do the update now. So we have the person, and we are going to then take the person's pay rate and give them a raise. %10 raise. We're going to get our, remember we have to create the JSON body to send in. So, but it's not P, it's person, so copy paste, watch out for those type of errors. And then we'll do the put. So now we're going to do a put. So let's grab this code, because we are gonna, it's very similar. The difference is though we need to know which ID we're doing. Now we just got it, so we should know. But remember the syntax. We'll just make that a string, just to make everybody happy. Okay. Now, when you do a put, with this API, nothing comes back. And the reason nothing comes back is because you just told it which one to update. So what you really care about is that you got a 200 back, but actually what you're looking for is a 204. Again, this has to do with the API that you're using, but this one doesn't return any content back. You could send the object back if you wanted to, but you just updated it. So you're saying, hey, update it for me with these values, and then it comes back and says I was successful. So you already have the object. But if you needed to get it back again, you just do a get and go back and get the object again. So if the status code's a 204, then we're just going to print person updated. Otherwise, show me the status code, right? Print res.status code. All right, and then now we can finally get rid of the rest of this code. We don't need this. And I'm going to comment out the create just so we don't create more Darth Vaders, but we'll get rid of that. And if, assuming I didn't mess anything up, again, let's walk the code real quick. We're going to go get a resource by ID. So before, when we did a get, we were getting back all of them, and we were having to parse through each and every one of them. That's what this was doing. In this case, we're getting a specific one. So it's this, the difference between this API supports several types of get. One, it gives you back all of the people. One, which is the one we're using, it gets you back a specific person based on ID. And you may notice there's also an API here that will go and get a person by first name, last name. Okay. So less useful when you've populated the database the way we have. So again, 43 is the one we're after. We do the normal request. If it says, yeah, I found it, then you'll get a 404 here. If it's not found, if it is found, you'll get a 200. Then we go ahead and create an object, and then we update the object with the new value. I could have updated name and everything else at the same time. You saw the SQL. It's just going to go update the whole thing. And then go turn that into JSON data, and then pass that through along with the URL of the person ID, because we're updating a specific one, and we're not doing post, we're doing put. And then if the status code comes back 204, we know it was updated. Otherwise, it'll go ahead and print all that. So let's go ahead and run this. We're in the debugger. So it went and found the person. Now we've created an object. Here's the object right here. Now we need to turn that into JSON data. So here it is here. And we've increased the pay rate. So you'll notice it wasn't, well, I guess I already did it one time we looked at it. And here's the actual update. We're going to do the put. And we should have gotten back a 204. Sure enough, we did. So let's go see if 43 got updated. So back over to Postman. I could do a get, but here it is. 23.21 was the pay rate. So let's go back down here to 43. And there you see that it got updated. We gave Darth Vader a 10% increase in hourly rate. All right, one last thing real quick is delete. So there's a delete verb. And so we are going to just go ahead and do the delete now. And it's most similar. We'll go delete this record 43. So let me plug this code in. But what we're going to do is just simply call delete instead of calling get. So we don't need to go get the object in order to delete it. And we are going to be looking for a 204, just like this code here. So 204 says it was successful, but there's no content coming back. So let me replace all of this code with that, and it's not person updated, it's person deleted. Okay, and I've got some kind of syntax thing going on here. Oops, too many else statements, get rid of that. So the delete code looks a lot simpler. You just simply delete by ID, in this case 43, and it'll do the delete. And so let's run it and see what happens. It says person deleted. Well, let's go see if 43 is now gone. So down here we are, and we go from 42 to 44. So it is gone. It worked. So we just took you through create, update, and delete basic atomic database actions using post, put, and delete. Those verbs in REST. So I hope this was useful for you. As always, subscribe, like the video. Also comment if you've got questions or suggestions or ideas for other videos that you'd like to see. There'll be some more Python, using Python coming, but this will be the, we won't probably do much more with REST clients, because we basically showed you everything that you need to know to get started with that. So thanks again for watching.